Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today is December 27th and this is my weekly shop update. So I had a heck of a great week last week. Not only did I do some woodworking for the first time in a long time, but I got to use the sawmill for the first time and it actually worked and I was very ecstatic about that. I have made some additions or some modifications to the mill in a time since I posted the video last week on doing the actual milling, so let's take a look at that. So probably the most visible thing that's changed since last week is I put up the sign up there that Ray made me. That looks awesome up there. And then a less visual change is I welded a nut to the top of this lifting post so that I can turn the whole assembly and raise and lower the saw head with a socket wrench. And that'll allow me to at least use this thing to get boards a little more easier than shimming the logs up into the blade. And doing this and turning it by hand, I can pretty much definitely say that the motor I had up there before that I blew was definitely turning in the wrong direction, forcing the saw head down into that coupler because it isn't really that hard to turn, and the difference between going down and going up is not really that big of a difference. So definitely that was my mistake on that one, but that's all right. I will add the motor at some point, but at this point I just want to be cutting something and getting some use out of this thing, so that's how that's going to work for now. So I thought that while I'm cutting this log here, we can do a little year-end review, talk a little bit about the things that happened this past year, the projects I made, the things that happened on the channel with the channel and all that fun stuff, and talk a little bit about what's coming up for 2017. So this was a pretty big year for me. I'll start off with some stats, go through some of the projects I did this year, some of the notable moments, I guess, and what's coming up in the future. So first off, some stats. Last year at this time, the channel had 42,000 subscribers, and right now it's sitting at 92,000 subscribers, so a growth of 50,000 subscribers. So welcome to everyone who has subscribed in the last year. The total views on the channel at the end of last year was 2.5 million, and this is crazy. The total views now are sitting at 7.2, so almost a 5 million view gain in the last year. This is just incredible. So project videos, I started out the year with the crib video, and I also did a video on a small gift box. In March, Lindsay joined me in the shop and she made a spoon, and further into the year, I did a series on my log hauling trailer. This fall, I did the apple press. Over the summer, I did a throwback of the haul table I made like 5 years ago when I was much younger. And in July, I also did a hexagonal dovetail box, which was the announcement video for my son Max, who was born a little over a week ago. So some of the highlights from the year. In April, I attended the woodworking shows in Atlanta as part of the Video Woodworkers booth. So that was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of great people, just hang out and just have a generally good time. At the end of May, I had a trip to Toronto where I was just visiting family, but I also got to meet up with a lot of great people there. Met a lot of other content creators at a meetup that we had, and I also got to visit a few shops. I got to visit Paul at Canadian Woodworks. I also got to visit the Unplugged Wood Shop, which was a great experience. In August, Triton came on as a channel sponsor, and I'm really happy and excited about that. They have been just absolutely fantastic to work with, really great people over there, and the tools have been fantastic so far. I was not able to kill their 20-volt drilling steel on the mill. At the end of August, I attended IWF as part of the Triton booth, and that was a lot of fun. I got to see a lot of larger industrial machines, as well as some of the smaller stuff that we'd be more typically used to, the stuff we would have in our shops here. And that was a lot of fun as well. In September, I was a speaker at Woodworking in America, and that was an incredible experience. I got to really try something that I had never done before, which was public speaking. Speaking about woodworking in public like that, and I was just so lucky that the attendees there were just incredible. It was really great just being there and speaking to everybody and just sharing all the stuff that I had to share. It was a fantastic experience. And of course, back in January, I joined the Wood Talk podcast, and it's been absolutely great. Just talking with Mark and Shannon every week and just having a good time talking about woodworking with two other people who happen to also love woodworking. So I'd say probably the biggest thing that happened for me last year was my jump into the online classes as part of the Wood Whisperer Guild. In the late winter, I did the sofa table build over there in the guild, and that went so extremely well that I am back doing more builds into the foreseeable future. The next build coming up here in just a few weeks is the farmhouse table, and then next summer I'll be doing a Queen Anne highboy. And I am looking forward to building a highboy because I had always wanted to build a highboy, and that is an easier project than the secretary desk. But instead of doing the easy project first, I went ahead and did the harder one first. So it'll be fun to do something slightly easier, but also somewhat challenging in that period style. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then coming up here in the future as well, I do need to make a bed for my son JR because I'm not making another crib in my life, and Max is going to need a crib in a few months. So pretty soon here, I'll be starting on a twin bed, a twin size bed. Then I'll have the highboy build starting, I'll probably start that sometime in the early spring, and then I'll have the rest of the sawmill build as that thing continues to get going. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been part of the channel, either for a day or for a few years. I'm really happy to have you all here. It's been so great to have so many supportive people. And for instance, I would not have been able to finish or even really remotely even think about building a sawmill without all of the amazing encouragement that I've received from all of you. So thank you so much. All right, so still a few issues to work out, but that's kind of what you get when you kind of just want to get into it and start cutting without actually fine-tuning and finishing everything. So the first problem you saw was the blade came off of the wheels when I was applying the lubricant. As the lubricant hit the blade and hit the wheels, it froze, so a little antifreeze in there will help with that, but that caused the blade to slip off the wheels because my tracking isn't correct yet. The blade is still running too far forward on the wheels, and that's because I ran out of adjustment space on the idle mount, so I had to take this idle side off and elongate the holes a little bit to give me some more travel, and then it'll track back, or I can try and track from the drive side. Either one will work for that, but again, it's one of those things where it's kind of a tedious thing that I just want to get cutting, so it's part of the risk that I run jumping into it. So when the blade came off, I dulled it a little bit, which made it hard to feed through the log. Quite a bit hard to feed by hand, but still possible. This does roll a lot easier than you would think, considering how much this weighs compared to how much I weigh. This is about 1,500 pounds, the carriage and the saw head all together, and I'm 120 pounds. So the fact that it does roll is pretty exciting. The next thing that happened towards the end of one of these cuts here, I did clip the top of my side support, and that's part of the, I don't know, indoctrination into bandsaw milling, is eventually you're going to hit those side supports, so I'm glad I got it out of the way early. So that blade was dull from like the second cut, and then it was really dull for the last cut. But surprisingly, the cut quality on here is still extremely good, even though the teeth are all, you can actually see the teeth are a little bit on the screwed up side. So I have a few things left to do on here to get it all running a little better. Oh, and the other thing too is as the head came down, it did bind a little bit because the acme rods aren't totally aligned, but because I finally ran this thing up and down a little bit, it did cause the mounting plates on the bottom to move a little bit, and they should be aligning pretty well now. So let's head inside. So one last thing, I did pick up a little hand crank winch to go on the carriage, and that allowed me to feed the carriage through the cut a little more controlled. At this point, I really don't mind pushing it. It's kind of fun, but for the bigger stuff where you need a more controlled, slower feed, the winch is going to come in very handy, and you can walk along and just crank it down the track. So that'll be fun. I just got to drill some holes. More hole drilling. That's all right. So what I've been working on in the shop for the last couple of weeks, I couldn't really talk about too much, are these serving platters. So when April was here back in October, we made a couple of platters. Mine's inside, I think, but I made a couple more. Actually, I made 8 more of these things to give as Christmas gifts, and 5 of them have already left. They were gifts from my parents, my in-laws, my sister, my sister-in-law, and my brother-in-law, and I have 3 more here for, I guess, other gifts or whatever. So these are all just small slabs that I've had for a long time that I didn't really have anything else to do with, so I cut them in half lengthwise. They're about I think they were like 3 or 4 foot long slabs, and I made a few of these little live edge serving platters. So I got some nice epoxy fill on this one. This one's maple. This was the first log that I cut with my chainsaw mill. This is some of the upper canopy of that tree. And I also had some butternut, a little piece of butternut here that's left. The one little bow tie. It's the only bow tie that I did on all of these, so that's kind of cool. I'm pretty excited for this because this will be a woodworking video this week. I just have to finish applying coat of finish to one more board here. This guy here needs finish, and then that video will be finished. And I'll be able to release that. So that'll be out probably Thursday or Friday. And then likely tomorrow will be a video on the sawmill. I have to get that cut up. I have a few more videos to go to actually catch up that video series to where it is right now. So this week I'll have a video on making the guards. I also have a video on making the tensioner and setting it up to make that first cut. So those videos will be out shortly. But let's take a look at some viewer projects. This week I have a bunch of projects that are all video related, or they all have videos associated with them. So if you need something to watch over the holidays here, this might help. So first this week is a card box for Anne by Donny. The box is made from sapele, and the splines and handle are made from hickory. Donny's wife likes to write letters and thank you cards, so he knew this would be a great gift for her. Next is a jewelry box by Wesley. Wesley is 17 years old, and he's been woodworking for just a little over a year. And this jewelry box was a gift for his grandma for Christmas. The box is dovetailed together, and what I really like are the little trays in there. I think he nailed the look of those things. I like those little pins and the look of those corners as well. Just a really nice little box. Wesley has a lot of energy, which I like in his videos, so definitely check that out. Next up is a trapezoidal door by Brian. This door is so cool. I don't think I've ever seen a door with trapezoidal panels like that. Brian made the door to fit inside of this bookshelf that he also made, and the whole thing is 13 feet wide and 10.5 feet tall, so it's just absolutely massive, and it's made with over 500 board feet of maple. Lastly is a loft bed by Josh. This was the bed that he made for his son Jaden, and he used plans from both Anna White and from Jay Bates to combine the 2 designs to make this bed. He says the construction was pretty simple, but where it got challenging was the finishing. I think the finish on here turned out really great. Pine is pretty hard to finish, and to have something that looks that uniform like he does, definitely a good result, so be sure to check that out. I think that's it. That's the last update of the year. Kind of weird. Another year's gone by. So thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.